We went from now Switzerland to Brazil. So I wanted to kind of take some time and tell you about the experience we had working with the Central Bank of Brazil and setting up Rails, which is the product of my company, a co-founder called Parfin. So Parfin, just for context, is a company started in 2020. We have about 80 plus employees. We have offices in Brazil, UK, and Portugal. We raised more than $35 million in venture capital. And the two co-founders are myself, Alex, and Marcos. I'm kind of a techie guy. Marcos, he's an ex-banker. He used to be the CTO and COO of BTG Pactual, which is the biggest, the largest investment bank in Latin America. And so we have built two products. One is called the Parfin platform, which is a mixture of, let's say, Talos and Fireblocks. This is a very kind of Latin product oriented. And Rails is our new product, which is a blockchain for banks. And this is the thing we're going to be talking about today. And so what is Rails really? Is two things, is what we call the Rails node. This is a fork of Geth for the people that are more technical. But we changed it so that it can reach 10,000 TPS and it has an enterprise-grade database in the backend and regulatory compliant and so on. This is meant to be installed on-prem by the banks. And then the Rails public chain is coming soon. It's Ethereum-based EVM layer 2 blockchain based off the Arbitrum Orbit stack. And this is being launched this year. And so what is that we really try to do with Rails as a product is, so on the one hand, you have TradFi, the banks and so on. On the other hand, you have DeFi. And these two things have been working in silos. And so what we're trying to do is to combine these two things, and hence, these two products that we have. Because the idea is if we can unlock the liquidity of TradFi and the users of TradFi, and if they can use DeFi, and then on the other hand, if the TradFi can access the innovation of DeFi, then that's the future we want to build. And then one thing you can do with the Rails node, one of the things I showed before, if many banks install the Rails node, they can connect to each other, and then they form something we call the subnet. Okay, so many banks have installed this and created the subnet, and this is the case I want to show you what was used in the Central Bank of Brazil. Just quickly, because I realize, Parfin and Rails are more known outside of Latin America, not so known outside of Latin America. Just to get an idea of the kinds of clients we work with, it's typically large financial institutions. So we've been working with the Connexus, JP Morgan team, Central Bank of Chile, the BIS. We just joined Agora, Central Bank of Brazil, and then a bunch of banks. And then we have two financial institutions already in production, Nuclea and Cielo. Those are Brazilian entities. Nuclea is the biggest financial market infrastructure provider in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a massive company. They process more than $4 trillion in payments per year. And so they've been tokenizing commercial receivables for the last several months. They are now tokenizing 10,000 receivables per week. And so this is a list of the use cases we tackle, but again, I wanted to just talk about this one, Central Bank of Brazil. And so the story is this: when we got approached by the Central Bank of Brazil, they had this setup. There was a Hyperledger Besu, and the idea was every bank would access Hyperledger Besu directly via RPC, or some of them would even be a validator. But then, of course, you have two problems. One is privacy, because if bank A can see all the transactions of bank B because they are validators, then it just it doesn't work, right? They're competitors. And also scalability, because Hyperledger Besu has a limit of transactions per second. And so, if you add more banks and more users, especially if you put all your clients on chain, then it's going to clog up the whole thing. So what is the solution we came up with? And this is what is already there installed in the Central Bank of Brazil, is to have every bank install the Rails node. So they have their own on-prem blockchain system that they can use internally. They can put all their clients in that blockchain. And that blockchain in a hub and spoke model is connected to every other blockchain. We call it a ledger, right? Actually, the Rails node has like a ledger inside. So the Rails node is connected to one another, every other bank, through the Hyperledger Besu in the middle. So Hyperledger Besu then becomes kind of like a messaging layer. And that is what we have set up. And then we built this, what we call the Rails protocol, to make sure that communication between the different Rails nodes from bank to bank is fully encrypted. And so this has been used in the pilot one, as the central bank calls it. But then more recently, and this is the thing we're doing now in 2025, is we're adding this new technology called Enigma in the Hyperledger Besu. So what happens here now is that the token exists now inside of Hyperledger Besu, the CBDC, and then this is what gets transferred. Enigma is based on zero knowledge technology, and so the advantage of this is that the transactions, they become fully atomic. And this is just like a representation of what actually happens, right? So if you imagine that the orange on the top is the Central Bank of Brazil, they mint DREX, which is this wholesale CBDC, and then they can then send this to any other bank in the system, and they can mint as many as they want, and they can send multiple DREX to different participants in the same transaction. One of the advantages of the system is, you can batch transactions. So if you have 1,000 clients of bank 1 or bank 2 trying to transfer, funds to 1,000 clients of bank 3, this becomes a single transaction in the Hyperledger Besu, and so you add a lot of scalability. Yeah, and so just as a point of next steps for the Central Bank of Brazil. So we've been participating with them since 2023. 2024 is what they finished the first pilot one, as they call it. They have assessed a few different technologies to provide privacy and scalability. Rails is the only one that managed to deliver all the workflows they're looking for. And now we are in pilot 2, which is finishing the selection for the privacy solution. The idea is for this to go into production in the coming months, years, as there's not a clear timeline yet. Yeah, and with that, thank you so much. I want to make sure that I don't stand between you, everyone, and home.